Hello, my cats and kitties. It's your friendly, maybe, neighborhood headbanger here, Terry. And tonight is another true crime video. Where are we going? Well, we're certainly not on my street like we were last time. No, no, nay, nay. We are going to Norway. That's right, we're leaving the continent. We're going to Norway, and even better, we're going back in time. We're going back in time to Norway in the late 80s and early 90s when black metal has begun to be a popular underground way of metal. Black metal is a subgenre of metal. It has its roots in death metal, hardcore punk, just several different genres that have contributed to it. The most influential early bands that you can thank for it are Venom, Bathory, and Celtic Frost. If you go back and you look at some of the albums and songs, particularly by Venom, then you will see where black metal gets the groundwork of the genre. I will warn you, if you are a Christian, you may easily be offended by Venom's work, shall we say. So in black metal, we basically have a lot of anti-Christian imagery. We have a lot of satanic imagery and lyrics. And we also have quite a bit of pagan imagery and lyrics, because the people who were performing black metal were trying to reassert their independence from being Christianized. Now, understand, these were not exactly philosophy majors. These were a lot of kids who were bored, unemployed, apparently did not come from homes where parents knew or cared what was going on. I mean, if I walked out of the house like this back in the day, my parents would have asked me, what the heck are you doing? This apparently was not a thing with these guys, and these guys were young, 18, 19, 20, 21, in that age range. So we're going to talk today about our true crime episode is going to be about a particular black metal band known as Mayhem. Mayhem was one of the OGs of the black metal scene in Norway. They were formed in 1984. A lot of people are surprised they were formed that early because the Norwegian black metal wave of music, it's called the second wave after Bathory, Venom, and Celtic Frost, and some other bands like Merciful Fate. Anyway, it's called the second wave. It is by far more the wave that people know about, and they don't particularly know about it for its music, but for all the crazy stuff that happened within the black metal circle. Mayhem, aptly named. Mayhem was co-founded by a guy by the name of Euronymous. He does have a Norwegian name. I'm not even going to try it. I would butcher every Norwegian name I tried. So we're going to go by, most people in the heavy metal scene had an alias or another thing that they went by, and we're gonna call those. We're gonna go with that. Names like, let's see, Faust, Necro Butcher, which was a member of Mayhem, Dead, which was their lead vocalist for a while. So yeah. Awesome names like Count Grishnok, which I think is my favorite. His actual name is Varg, and I'm not even going to try the last name. We'll just go with Varg. He'll come into the picture later during this little true crime episode. Anyway, Mayhem was, like I said, co-founded by Euronymous, who really was very influential in the black metal scene. Kind of, he and Mayhem sort of set the tone, along with some other bands like Old Funeral, Dark Throne, Emperor. Anyway, back to Mayhem and Euronymous. Euronymous had actually bought a bookshop and a record shop and named it Welt and that's probably not correct. Anyway, it was the Norwegian word for hell. He named it Hell, and in the basement of it, he had this all black room with these symbols everywhere, and in that room, he invited people to come and talk about black metal music and the black metal philosophy, and it was called the Black Circle. Now, some members of black metal bands have downplayed how important that was and have mentioned that Euronymous liked the sound of his own name and the sound of what he was doing. He was a little bit into everything. He played guitar for the band. He, like I said, had sort of a kind of a council that he presided over with other black metal band members. He was a producer. He had a record label, such as it was, called Death Like Silence. Best name ever, though, for a record label. 2 thumbs up for that. But yeah, just he liked to think of himself as a mover and a shaker, and to a certain degree he was. But his fame came from something, really not music related, honestly. All right, so let's talk about Mayhem. Mayhem started out with a vocalist whose name was Dead. That was what he went by. And eventually that would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. He actually did wind up dead by his own hand, sadly. And apparently Euronymous came upon this scene, and before he called the police or anybody, he took pictures because, as you do, and did other things that I'm not going to talk about because they're weird. I mean, nothing sexual, but just weird. And yeah, took mementos. Let's just put it that way. Very bizarre. And then from the pictures that he took, that's actually the album cover of a bootleg album that Mayhem did later. And yeah, so this is what we're talking about with these fine folks. So, he was, like I said, he was really, really into the scene and into making it look bad and brutal and satanic. There is argument as to whether he was actually satanic or not. There was argument as to some of the people in the black metal scene who projected this satanic anti-Christian thing, if they really cared or not. There were some true practicing Satanists within the scene, but it's arguable whether or not Euronymous is one of them. He basically wanted to rule the scene, more or less. And he did. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay his importance in the scene. He did basically rule the scene. So, let's talk about the ever-changing lineup of Mayhem. And that was one of the things that caused this incident to happen. Mayhem had people come and go. Of course, if one of them, commits self-harm like Dad did, you can't really prevent that. That's a thing that Euronymous didn't have any actual control over. But yeah, the lineup did change quite a bit. And one of the people that came into the lineup, a guy who had earlier played for Old Funeral, was Varg, Count Grishnock. Count Grishnock was a very interesting, I think it's absolutely perfect that there's a cat going wow in the background of this video. Just completely, fits the aesthetic. Sorry about that. Anyway, Count Grishnock was a very interesting guy. You see early pictures of him. He's got like studs and like kind of Viking metal look. I think he's actually carrying a mace or something. Some Viking metal, type thing. So yeah, that's interesting. Whereas most of the people in black metal were adopting corpse paint, which is what I have on. And a lot of times they put symbols on there that, as a practicing Christian, I will not. But this was kind of a look for them when they were in concert. They had kind of this thing going on, which is why I look this way today. Trying to look the part as I tell you about it. Count Grishnock was already kind of a troublemaker. He is going to be connected to some church burnings in the black metal scene. Because they were very anti-Christian, they would desecrate graveyards, they would paint things on gravestones, or they would topple them over and break them. So they were kind of into that thing, and then it progressed into actually burning churches. And there were some absolutely beautiful, very old wooden cathedral-type churches in Norway, and they were burnt down. and Count Grishnock had a little side band called Burzum, I think was the name of it. And he actually, and the name of the album was Ashes, and he actually put a picture of one of the burnt churches on the album cover. And he wound up being associated and actually convicted for some church burnings. So, he comes to this outfit with, kind of a even more brutality, actual in practice brutality, than Euronymous does. Apparently, there was a contract, a musical contract, between Count Grishnock, Varg, and Euronymous. And apparently, Count Grishnock had not been paid. There was some sort of money issue with this. And so one night in I'm going to get this wrong. I know I am. 1993? I think it's 93. It's either 91. No, Dad killed himself in 91. So 93. Sorry, I was trying really hard not to say he did that, but, I'm sure you figured it out from what I said earlier. Anyway, so Count Grishnock, Varg, and a buddy decide that they're going to go visit Euronymous and discuss this whole contract thing. But it wasn't really a visit as much as it was a hit. I mean, let's just call it what it was. So he comes to visit Euronymous. They, under the guise of, signing this contract and talking about money and, saying, hey, where's the money from, that I'm owed from sales. And what happens actually is a stabbing. And not just a stabbing, but a mini stabbing. Lots of stabbing. And in court, and Euronymous is killed by this, he's stabbed to death, and it is a huge loss for the black metal community. They don't really know what they're, how to proceed from here. It's a huge loss for Mayhem because it's a major member of one of their own. And so it's just kind of it's kind of a crazy thing. At his trial, Count Grishnock, aka Varg, will say that he went, yes, to go talk about this contract thing, and that he was attacked by Euronymous, which is why Euronymous has stab wounds in his back. Yeah, that's not making sense. That's not flying. So, no one believes this. No one believes that Euronymous attacked Varg, although both of them had made comments about the other, and it was very common in the black metal scene to say, I'm going to go kill him, or I'm going to go burn this church, or I'm going to go, and a lot of that was said, and actually not that much of it happened. Yes, there were church burnings, and yes, people did die, but not to the extent that they would want you to believe, that they were that horrible and that brutal. So Varg, here he is in court trying to pass off this he attacked me thing. No one's believing this. He gets convicted. And he gets, wait for it, he gets for voluntary manslaughter, I think was what they actually finally convicted him of. For that and for his involvement in the church burnings, which they just kind of threw in with it, he gets 21 years. Yep. 21 years is the maximum they can actually give him for that under Norway's legal system. So yes, he goes off to prison where he has access to music, has access to musical instruments, and actually records an album while he's in there, and begins to start to gravitate toward some white supremacist Nazi, type stuff. Although he'll be quick to tell you that he's not a Nazi. He just believes in the, Norway having superiority and having its own, having its right to control its people and who comes in and who comes out, blah, blah, blah. Standard racist white supremacist stuff. And he's out. Yeah, he's out. He is out after burning down being involved in the burning down of historic churches, after stabbing a guy. Oh gosh, I can't remember how many times it was. I want to say 17, but it was a bunch of times. He killed him good, as we would say here in the South. He's deader than dead. So yeah, that's what Varg got. And that's not even the only true crime within the black metal scene. That was specifically the one I wanted to tell you about. But there was also a guy by the name of Faust. He was a drummer. He drummed for several bands. So I want to... Hellhammer, maybe, was the band he drummed for. I really should have taken better notes. Anyway, he actually killed a man. He sort of coerced a man into a forest. The man was gay. He said the man made a move on him. No one knows. They were in the forest alone. But anyway, he killed him. And so he also got prison time. You know, that was a badge of honor in the black metal scene, is that you did something brutal, you went to prison for it. Brutality was the whole thing. Brutal. There was one band, Abruptum, who had there were two members in the band, that was it. And one of them was a little person. I'm trying to do the politically correct thing here, but a person who had suffered from dwarfism and was a little person. And he claimed that he was so evil that he could only be called It. He was too evil for a name. So this is the kind of thing that they're projecting. Black metal is still around, believe it or not. Mayhem is still around. It's actually, you know, still there. Quite a few of the black metal bands that were originally there are still there. And then we have newer bands that were based on what black metal did. For example, Cradle of Filth is you know, descended from that. Let's see, Behemoth, which is a Polish black metal band. So you still have black metal bands doing concerts. They're very low key. They don't particularly want to be famous. Their sound has improved. Initially, their sound was very lo-fi, like they, you know, recorded it in a cave. They're making videos now. Some of their videos are actually pretty complex, and they deal with like Norse battles and that kind of thing. There is a group called Emperor. I know you've seen their lead singer probably on memes. He's the one that has the corpse paint on that looks like he looks like Grumpy Cat. He's actually been compared to Grumpy Cat when he's painted up. That band that he is in is Immortal. Actually, that band is not, he's not in that band anymore. He's in a band called Abath, which is the name he goes by. Anyway, Immortal was actually one of the few black metal bands that did not involve satanic lyrics or imagery. They had created their own fantasy land, kind of like a Tolkien type thing, and their songs were about the battles and the trials and tribulations that took place in that land. So they weren't, you know, it wasn't an anti-Christian, let's bring down the Christians type thing. I guess you could probably call it a pagan type thing, but it was more sort of their fantasy land that they had created. And black metal bands didn't really make videos initially. You might have some raw concert footage. In fact, Mayhem released a live concert footage video and record, and a lot of this was kind of bootleg type stuff that, you know, people had done while they were at the concert and then would try to sell, that type thing. Just very, very lo-fi, but their concerts were controversial, to say the least. They always had some sort of satanic imagery. Sometimes there were like animal things going on that we're not going to talk about, sacrifices, that type thing. And they did get a lot into trouble for those. Some of them got banned from certain countries and certain places, and that's why they kind of tried to keep it low key. And like I said, they didn't really want to be famous. They wanted to be famous in their circle, they kind of wanted to, in their own little kingdom, so to speak. So, yeah. So why did I pick this, and why do I do my research on black metal? Well, first of all, let me tell you this. I don't listen to it, and I don't listen to it because as a Christian, I find it offensive to me spiritually, even though a lot of them sing in Norwegian or their you know, their country, you know, Polish, Swedish, Norwegian, whatever. I just don't listen to it because I know what their content is from looking at their lyrics after they've been translated, and I just, it's not my thing. I find it spiritually disturbing, and so I just kind of shy away from the actual music. and I use that term loosely because black metal music is largely, let's see, you've got the blast beats, the very fast drum beat, you've got the guitars that play basically power chords, maybe 3 or 4 of them in the entire song, and it's kind of like just a type thing. And then you've got the Cookie Monster vocals. You gotta love them. You just gotta love them. Even if they were singing in English, it would be hard. And actually, Immortal does sing in English, and I'm just like, oh, Abbott, honey, I'm working on it. I'm trying to understand what you're saying, dude, but it's hard. It's really hard to understand what he's saying. And of course, if you're singing in Norwegian, I'm not going to hear anything. And it's a lot of I don't know. I have no idea what's being said. Videos. The emergence of videos through black metal has been kind of hysterical. In the beginning, Immortal made a video where they ran around the forest. And by the way, forests are extremely important in Norwegian metal. Half the videos I see take place in a forest. There's a joke that says, "What do the Norwegian park rangers do?" Most of the time is spent rescuing black metal musicians that are lost in the forest. But no, forest is a very big thing, and I think it's because it goes back to nature, and it goes back to pagan, and it goes back to battles and that kind of thing. But yeah, their first one was them running around in a forest, striking poses like this. And there was a guy who was wearing, I kid you not, a pointed little witch hat that it looks like he got from the Norwegian version of Walmart, and they just ran around, and one guy had a torch. Torches are big. Got a torch, and eventually he was running around the forest, and eventually he planted it somewhere in the forest, and that was the end of the video. It was like they were looking for a place to plant the torch, and in the meantime they had to run around and make poses and have witch guy there. So yeah, that was their first video. You can go look it up if you want to. Turn the sound down because you won't want to hear the music, but just watch them. It's hysterical. Then you go further in Emperor's career, and you have them on a cliff with the wind blowing, and the camera work is good. The sound production is considerably better. If you look at a Behemoth video, some of those are trying to tell a story, and they have castles and people dressed up very well that are supposed to be inside the castle, and there's a dinner, and it's actually very well done. Don't listen to Behemoth music though, because it is ridiculous. The lead singer of Behemoth is a theistic Satanist. He is an avowed Satanist, as is the leader of Merciful Fate, King Diamond, and the leader of Gorgoroth, which is another black metal band. So it's very some people are actually very into it. They believe it, and some people just use it as shock value. Kind of like Slayer does. There's not really a practicing Satanist in Slayer. In fact, there's a practicing Catholic in Slayer, which I'm not sure how he, his confessions must be like 5 hours long. Anyway, but black metal is still here today. That is the point. It is still around. Even some of the OG bands are still around. Mayhem, like I said, still exist. Behemoth still exist. So yeah, there are still people out there. These guys are in their late 40s now, and it's interesting. They do have a very cult-like following. It's just interesting to me because of it. It did just kind of turn into an almost cult-like mentality. You had all these young people buying into this idea of, we're going to be brutal, we're going to wear black, we're going to wear corpse paint, we're going to commit crimes in the name of, our brutality. Although, really, honestly, the death of Euronymous was over the most common thing. It's the most common element of crime ever. Money. Money is the common element among almost all crime. You have something I want, it's valuable, or you've done something to me and taken my money from me. So crime, it was really just a ridiculously common crime. It wouldn't be the kind of crime you would think would happen in a black metal scene, like, a sacrifice or something. Nope, just had to do with money. So in the end, even members of the black metal scene are just people with greediness and probably not any more brutal than your average criminal is. People desecrate things all the time. People do vandalism all the time. People commit arson all the time. So they weren't necessarily special. They just wanted to think they were. And again, the sociology of it, me being someone who's into counseling and into how people interact with each other, I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating that everybody formed this core little group, developed this type of music that they played. Okay, true, yeah, it's built on other bands, but all music is built on something before it. Um, and they just, decided that they were going to project this image and that it was going to be Satanism and anti-Christianity and paganism, and just they just all this music, did nobody was making a love ballad. They all just decided this is what they were going to do. And it was a community, and you had people jumping from bands to bands. I mean, Varg used to play for Old Funeral, and then now he's playing for Mayhem, and then he also had a side band project that he did. He was literally a one-man band called Burzum. So, it was a community and still is a community, and I find it fascinating. Now, I'm probably going to get my first dislikes on this video because this video was a little all over the place, and that's probably because I'm on Neurotin and my brain is over there somewhere. But I did want to get this video done. My next video is actually going to be, and I feel funny saying this wearing all of this, but it is actually going to be an ASMR video. Maybe I should dress like this again. It's going to be my favorite makeup products. So for those of you who enjoyed the ASMR, it's coming back. All right, little children of the night. I hope that you enjoyed this video and the weirdness thereof. I've been wanting to do this video for a while, just for the fun of it, and just for the dressing up and the, not for the fun of the crimes that took place, obviously. But the next true crime will be a little more not crazy. Well, it probably will be crazy, but not this crazy. So tell me what you think down in comments. Tell me, comment on anything that you might know about the black metal scene, because like again I said, I find it interesting. I hope that you guys are doing well and that you're safe. If there's a vaccine out there available for you, make sure that you're getting vaccinated. I know some people don't feel good about the vaccines, but I've read enough on it now that I feel like it's safe and it's effective. And I get my second one in about 10 days, 10 or 11 days. So I'm excited about that. I love you guys. And hopefully you don't have bad dreams about this tonight. If you do, I'm just going to tell you in advance, I'm sorry. But you guys take care. I will see you in the next video.